What's up, y'all? My name is Reggie Ford. This is episode 146 of the Athletes Podcast.
This will be 146. Crazy. 146 episodes, Reggie Ford. Can you believe that?
That's amazing.
It is. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on today, sharing your knowledge.
I'm so excited. I'm honored to be on the podcast. I'm honored to be here with you. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you featured today as the author of Perseverance Through Dysfunction. Andrew Marinus introduced us today. We got the podcast recorded today. As an individual who played for Vanderbilt, walked on, you've been an entrepreneur your whole life. I feel like we have some similarities. I'd love for you to maybe just begin with our audience of who you are, a bit of backstory on the Nashville native and how you came to be this incredible human being now today.
Oh man, you got me blushing already. We just got started, so I appreciate that. So yeah, like you said, I'm a Nashville native. This is home. We're sitting right here in Vanderbilt's business school. So I grew up in the city before it was the go-to city. Mm-hmm. Before everybody wanted to flock here, do music, run around on Broadway, and that meant that the city wasn't as what you think it would be. And so I grew up in a rough part of town. Grew up through poverty, crime, and different things like that. In fact, my mom, she was extremely young when she had me. She was 14 years old when I was born.
Okay.
And it's crazy to think my grandmother was 15 when she had my mom. So I, right now at this age, at this baby face, am older than my grandmother was when I was born. Like, it blows my mind to think I don't think I could have a kid right now, and I definitely don't think I could have a grandkid right now. And in fact, like, my mom was my age when I was headed off to college. And so, you know, I was being raised by children who were raised by children. And that was the cycle in my family for a long time. And on the other side, my dad, he was young as well, not quite as young, but just a few years older than my mom. And he had a totally different life. He was in the streets. So he, at an early age, ended up dropping out of high school. Both of my parents dropped out of high school. He turned to selling drugs and being in gangs and things like that. And so growing up, I rarely had him around in my life. And my mom was there, you know, raising me, pushing me, making sure that I stayed focused. And a part of that was academics. Mm-hmm. She was always on top of me when it came to academics. And I had this, you know, natural ability to play sports. And so with those two combined, it filled a lot of my time so that I wasn't getting in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. I think I was a little sneaky kid too. So I might have done some bad things, but didn't really get caught for them. And when I was about 10 years old, it was the first time I was able to play organized ball. I played football for a program called Backfield in Motion, which gave all the things that you needed to play football for free. So pads, travel, food, tutoring, all these things were packaged in this nonprofit program. And it was my introduction to playing. And I fell in love.
Wow.
My first year, I played in an all-star game. I played corner and receiver.
No big deal.
Yeah. Played corner and receiver, played in the all-star game, and we had that game at Vanderbilt Stadium. It was at that age I said that I was going to play at Vandy when I got old enough to do so. And so that was kind of, you know, academics and athletics, football, basketball, track. I was always busy, kind of pushed me along the way. And I ended up through that program getting recognized by one of the most elite schools, I would say, in the city. The only boys school in the city, all boys school in the city, Montgomery Bell Academy. Okay. And I ended up attending MBA, and that was a challenge because, you know, growing up from all the things that I thought were normal, you know, being born to a 14-year-old mother and all the things that come with a life in poverty. I was on the other side of town where people were, you know, these were the millionaires of the city. These were some of the billionaires of the city. And it was just a total culture shock for me. And I had to adapt to that at a very early age. And I think from 9th grade on, I was really experiencing a lot of life and a lot of the things that no one in my family had done before that. Like, again, my mom had me so young. She had to drop out to raise me. My dad had dropped out. And so, you know, high school was a learning experience, and it was one that I was, you know, learning by myself in a whole new environment. But I adapted well. I ended up being considered a gentleman scholar athlete of the school, and that's like the school's ideal person, and so I was very honored to have that recognition, and that led to looking at where I was going to go to college, and I had tons of different some offers for athletics to run track and play football, some Ivy Leagues in there. But 10 years old, I said I'm playing at Vandy, and I didn't get an offer from Vandy, but I decided I could get into the school. Well, I didn't know that at the time, but I got into the school, and then a couple months after getting in, I decided to walk on, and that was one of the greatest decisions I think I ever made. Because prior to prior to playing football, I was on campus just roaming around. Like I said, I went to an all boys school, and there were girls on this campus, and I'm like, I gotta move around a little bit. And but football gave me that structure that I needed, that I missed, and I played for some amazing coaches. Went from a couple 2-10 seasons to some winning seasons with bowl games and things like that, and so I got a great experience when it came to that. Finished my college career and really didn't know what I was gonna be doing. I spent so much time focused on football. That I did, and also, again, being the first person to do any of these things and kind of being opposed to help, I was just moving. I was just going with the motions. And so I had to go back to school to, with a different focus and a focus on what am I going to do after. And so I went back, got a master's degree from the business school here at Vandy. And then that set me up on a trajectory for finance and accounting, and that's where I am professionally now. So
founding Rosecrete Wealth Management, was that in the back of your mind going through as an undergrad studying economics? Like, did you have that in mind? I know you talk about how finances are important, as basically a structure, a foundation for any success long term. But did you know that was in the cards, or was that the scheme the whole time?
To be honest, I didn't know what wealth management was.
Okay.
And it's funny because when I applied for the business school, I had to write essays, and one of them was like, where do you see your career going? And I made up this total BS essay about I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to end up in wealth management and this and this and this. And I didn't know what I was thinking or what I was going into. But I think it was a deep passion, even subconsciously, because one of my biggest pain points coming up was poverty, and I felt that if I could find financial stability, financial freedom for myself, that would be great. But then through that, I attained all this knowledge and got all these skills and these resources. It's like I can help other people with that as well. And so I think it had been birthed early on and then fostered through all of the learning and educating that I had gone through. And so yeah, Rosecrete, I'd left a career or a job in external audit, which is just as fun as it sounds, and got into wealth management and fell in love with it. I fell in love with sitting across from a client, working with them on issues that they may have been facing for years on how to, we need annuities set up, we need a trust set up, we need all these different things, or just seeing how excited they were when the market was kicking butt. Like, that's fun. We all win in that case. And so I really fell in love with that, and that's where the idea for Rosecrete really started to blossom. Okay. And the name Blossom. The name Rosecrete comes from the rose that grew out of a crack in the concrete. And so, that image, it looks so impossible with poor soil, poor light, all of that, but it does it. And I think that was the epitome of all the things that I had gone through in life to help me get to, the success and the levels that I had achieved. And so I wanted to honor that through that. And so, yeah, it was an endeavor. It was jumping off probably earlier than I should have, but it's paid off and it's been so rewarding.
Yeah, it definitely has, to say the least. That's an understatement. And I'm assuming that's what inspired you to write this book, specifically regarding breaking the curse of intergenerational trauma as a Black man in America.
Yeah, it's kind of, so I didn't have the idea for the book until a very acute moment in my life. So my grandmother, who had been the stability one part of the stability, my grandfather, they had been the rocks of my life for all as far back as I can remember. And my grandmother was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and all the coping mechanisms, all of the things that I had done to persevere up to that point, it was usually turned toward work.
Right.
Let's go hard on the field. Let's go hard in the court. Let's go hard in the classroom, so I won't have to deal with that stuff. So I don't have to deal with the emotion. And it just got to a point where I couldn't do that anymore. It caught up to me, and it affected my daily life. It affected how I presented myself. It affected how I showed up. And so I started journaling. And I journaled through her, illness. I journaled through other chaos that came up around that. And I wake up every day and I'm just like, is this what life is going to be from here on out? Because things had changed so quickly with her diagnosis, with the way that my family was just, the family structure was deteriorating around me. It really got hard to just deal with that.
Right.
And so I would turn to my phone and just journal. And some days it would be, forget all this. And other days it would be a long description of how I had to give grandma her insulin shots. And then my uncle came over here and he tried to steal this and that. And it just was all kind of stuff happening. And before I knew it, 6 months had passed. And I took all the journal entries from my phone and put it into my computer, and it was 60 pages. That was 6 months.
Wow.
So, and it was therapeutic, even though I was still going through a lot of turmoil. I decided to keep writing. And so I wrote from my earliest memories with a lot of the characters, the people in my life. And that's what became the book. And a lot of, the story of me getting to the point of founding Rosecrete, the stories of me, going through my athletic career and things like that, it's in there. But the book focuses on, how early on all of those things, from a mental health standpoint, from a behavior standpoint, I had normalized. I normalized the fact that I was 10 years old when I first had a gun pointed at me. I normalized the fact that I was 14 when one of my best friends was killed, and that just happens, right? But I think going on the other side of town, experiencing a different world, being a part of two worlds for a really long time, it made me realize that the things that I was going through weren't so normal. And so try to put all that in the book to help someone, maybe if they're going through it, or help people who have no idea what that world is like or that world is like, and try to bring it together.
Wow. Couple points. I don't think it is normal to, at 10 years old, have a gun pointed at you. But you know what? All of that said, like, what you've been able to do is incredible. Nothing short of it. And clearly that work ethic has transferred on post-athletic career. Just congratulations, first off, for being able to accomplish all of this. Like,
Thank you.
It's phenomenal. Let's focus on the athletic career for a bit here, because I do want to preface, like, we had you on for a couple different reasons. The first being Andrew recommendation.
Yeah, shout out to Andrew Marinus.
The second being all of these topics, right? The fact that you've been able to overcome all of this. You're also a phenomenal athlete, right? And I'd love to maybe highlight some of those athletic feats that you were able to accomplish. You mentioned at 10 years old that you knew that moment that you wanted to be at Vandy. What was it? Just because you were in that hometown, you wanted to be that guy that came back and was able to still represent Nashville proud?
I think before that, I knew very little about the NFL. I knew very little about college football. And being that whole experience of the All-Star game, we got to watch Vandy play Florida. Okay. And a couple Vandy and Florida players came to speak to us before the game. And I was like, they looked so big. I was like, look at these robots up here. Like, I want to be a robot one day. And so, like, that was exciting to me. And then, Vandy's not the largest stadium in the country, or definitely not in the SEC. It's probably the smallest. But to see all those people cheering for the players on the field, like, that just gave me a rush. And I always felt like when I had my helmet on, I was a character. I was a different person. And so I was a very shy kid. But when I put the helmet on, I had antics. I had a different personality. I had different swagger about me. And so, yeah, it was, and I was good.
Yeah.
I think that plays a huge role in it.
For sure.
If you're naturally good at something, like, you're going to gravitate toward it. And so from early on, right, I made the All-Star team before I knew what cover 3 was. And then the next year I played quarterback. So now I'm having to learn football. I'm having to understand all of this, and that helped my IQ, that helped my confidence and everything else. And so going forward, it was how can I be as good as I can be to make some of those goals come true. And so, yeah, like, I think it started at that 10 years old. That was the seed that was planted. I think there was always the rule of eligibility, even early on, like, right, you got to get your work done prior to being on the field in any regard. Backfield in Motion, that was very much written into the nonprofit. Like, you have to go to tutoring, you have to come to summer school and Saturday school in order to play. And so it was an added nugget for me. But even before I started playing, that was just, again, school came easy to me, and it was, I like to simplify things, and I might oversimplify, but school is just about pattern recognition and regurgitating.
Yeah.
And that's just, like, I had a good memory, and that was easy for me. And so school had always come easy, and if I had to be good at school to play the sport that I love, that got me out of myself, out of my head, and let me have fun, then that's even more reason to go hard in the classroom. And so it definitely helped, especially as I got older and some of those habits could have changed from my earlier years, and I could have slacked off a little bit in the classroom, but it definitely reinforced that for me.
That's what I love about the NCAA. Obviously is very glamorized. We're up from Canada, so everyone, the goal is to come down and play Div 1 sports, right? Growing up, it's glamorized. You go down to a Vandy, you go down to Florida, UCLA, and it's like you've made it at that point. For you, did it feel like you'd made it once you made it to Vandy?
Not initially.
Okay.
Again, I came in and we were 2-10. And that's hard, like 2 wins and 10 losses, coming out of a high school that was a powerhouse. So, like, we were ranked in the country, and we were winning state championships. And so I came from winning to losing, and that hurt. And I hadn't lost in a long time. And so it felt like, when we would go and play big schools, and we're in Neyland Stadium at Knoxville, Tennessee, like, that felt a certain way, but at the end of the day, we all have a mission. We're trying to win, and we weren't doing that. And so it didn't initially feel like I had made it. But then, and also I was a fresh walk-on, and so I wasn't playing as much.
Right.
And so I had gotten knocked down from being the best player on my team to, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, let's see you work your way up. And so initially, no. But then, I started to prove myself in practice. I started to earn spots on special teams and different things, and then we started winning. And so that was, I think, the moment where it shifted. It was, walking around campus, it's not just, oh, there's a football player. It's like, there's, y'all scored, you did this, and so it felt better once we were winning, and got back to that juice that I had in high school and even before that.
Were there specific athletes or players in general that you looked up to, tried to emulate your game around? From
as early as I can remember, my favorite athlete was Barry Sanders.
Okay.
So, and I wore number 20 my first year, and Barry was just a smooth, like, he was on ice. He was just so smooth. And so I really loved him. But then when my focus became like the defensive back, cornerback, Champ Bailey.
Okay.
Champ Bailey was my dude. His name is Champ.
Like, yeah, right. Like, it's in the name.
It's in the name. And then, and he was so dominant. And so those are two early on. Absolutely love LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
I just love their swag. It was a cool, calm demeanor, but they're gonna put everything in your face and keep. What does Marshawn Lynch say over and over and over? Like, I love that.
Okay.
And so yeah, those are probably some of my favorite players early on. And then when I got to Vandy, I got to play with some of the dudes that when I was in high school, I literally had my wallpaper on my computer was another high school player. It was a guy named Gaston Miller.
Okay.
Shout out to Gaston. I mean, he probably didn't even know this, but he was playing at Riverdale, a couple hours or about an hour east of here, and he was electrifying on the field. He was like Reggie Bush in high school.
Okay.
And I had never met him, but I was like, man, that's the dude. And so when I got to Vandy, I'm walking around campus and I'm like, that's Gaston. Like Gaston's right there. And another guy from the city, Jamie Graham, he was another one, played cornerback, and just like legends in the city that were at Vandy playing, and I got to eventually play with. And then, you know, I got brothers. Casey Hayward still in the NFL after all these years, and it's amazing. I used to watch him do things in practice and in games that just defied every law of physics that you could even imagine. And it's no wonder he's been so successful at what he's doing. And so yeah, a lot of people I looked up to.
One of the more timely topics right now is NIL and the ability for college athletes to profit off of their name, image, and likeness. I forgot to ask this of Shane Foster a couple hours earlier here, but I'd love to ask you what that would have been like, being able to profit or monetize on that, your NIL exposure, and what that would have meant to have some additional dollars available during school.
Yeah, I think I've always felt like student athletes should be paid, and people will argue that, you know, you're paid in the you know, tuition and being able to go to schools and things like that. But I have a strong stance on, you know, you're working with your sport 40, 50 hours a week sometimes in these sports. And if you're taking a state school tuition and breaking that down, you're getting paid less than minimum wage. So it's exploitation if you're saying that that's the benefit to a person. And then you get forced into these paper courses at some schools. You get forced into majors that don't necessarily benefit you or that you have no care for. And so you don't really get the experience or the true value of a college experience. And so I absolutely love the fact that student athletes are able to be paid for those things now. And for me, I mean, I was hustling in college. I was hustling to do what I needed to keep money in my pocket. So it would have been real nice if I could have, especially being a hometown guy, I could have had deals with different businesses and different people that I knew, even though I wasn't a starter. I know that through my network, I could have been able to do that. And that would have been really nice to have some extra dollars in my pocket. And I think even, you know, thinking about business, you're thinking about it earlier, right? There are, of course, a lot of pitfalls that come with a young person getting money and not knowing what to do with it, but you can make those mistakes earlier as opposed to later. And so, yeah, I really wish that I had that opportunity.
Well, and it's mistakes that are maybe thousands instead of, in some cases, millions when it gets to the NFL, right?
Definitely.
And that bi-weekly paycheck or weekly paycheck's a heck of a lot more than an NIL deal right now.
Absolutely.
So you can afford to screw up a couple NIL ones, right? Man, I'm always curious, when you spend 4 years here, 5 years in your case, taking your master's, you talk about the college experience. Are there any memories, stories, highlights that you think of when a guy like me asks you this question on the Athletes Podcast?
From a athletic standpoint,
and it can be both.
Yeah, no, I think the bowl experience was one that I'll never forget. And there was the song, what was it? I think it was "Champion" by Nelly. That was the theme song throughout that bowl season, my last year playing. And every time, and the weather was perfect. Like, we're in December and we were down in Memphis, but the weather was perfect. So I just remember being out there and hearing that song and just getting goosebumps. And unfortunately, we lost that game, but every time I'm like reminiscing or feeling nostalgic about football, I might pop that song on and just close my eyes and I'm just like, vibing to it, and it just felt so good. So that was probably one of the best moments. And I mean, so many great moments, but that was amazing. And then I met my wife here.
Okay.
I think that's probably the highlight of my college experience. One of my best friends and my wife, and the best friend, like we met the very first day we moved in. He wasn't a student athlete, but we ended up working. I told you I was hustling. We were working at the Munchie Mart together and became instant best friends. And so, shout out to James Quick. And that was a huge moment for me, just to have somebody like that I just like gravitated toward early on and had a friend from the beginning. Yeah. And then meeting my wife toward the end of my college career, somebody who I probably wouldn't have been the right person for early on. Like, I mean, timing is everything, but I think we met at the perfect time. And she had this level of understanding and patience for me and my, me transitioning into this adult who had to be a boyfriend, a good boyfriend. And she also challenged me in a lot of ways to be more introspective, look at the way that I was presenting, going back to, earlier conversation of the things that I had normalized and how that impacted me from a mental health standpoint and how I showed up to the world. She challenged me on that. And I think that's what drew me to her more than anything, because, a pretty girl is a dime a dozen, but someone who is going to help you grow, that's going to be with you and understand and have that patience, that is rare. And we bonded and we clicked, and so that's probably the highlight of my, and I'll tell the story of how we met. So we're sitting outside the dining hall in between classes, and she's like over there working on paper or something real quick, and I'm sitting there with a teammate. We're just chilling, talking about shoes. Okay. And at the time there were a pair of Air Jordans coming out, and they were nicknamed the Olympics because he had worn them in, I think, the 96 Olympics or something like that. And I was like, no, I don't really like the Olympics. And without knowing context or anything, she just turns around, who doesn't like the Olympics? I'm like, hello. And so I introduced myself, explained what we were talking about. She turned bright red, and before you know it, we were hanging out and been inseparable. So
I think she saw her opportunity, and she's like,
she shot her shot. She shot her shot.
I'm gonna correct him, and then it backfired real quick. I love it. Yeah. You can tell you guys have a special connection because there's a little twinkle in your eye as you were telling that story.
Definitely,
it's cool.
Definitely.
That is one of the amazing parts about college, university, is the fact that you meet so many incredible people. I'm also curious, because you were able to travel to all these incredible places, incredible institutions around the country, are there any that stick out? Any incredible stadiums, environments that were surreal?
Yeah. South Carolina.
Okay.
University of South Carolina is probably where, I don't know where it was in the season or whatever, but I was like, this is SEC football. This felt good. It was jumping. I didn't have the hatred toward South Carolina like I did Tennessee, so I could appreciate it a little bit more. And so that stadium was amazing. And then Alabama. Walking in there, and it was so loud. And they had, like, we barely had a Jumbotron, and they had like TVs that even from the field it looked like they were right in your face. And that was an amazing experience. So those are probably two of the ones. And I mean, I joke about Tennessee, but being in Neyland Stadium, that's a special place. It is one of the loudest places I've ever played, and the Tennessee fans are annoying because they're such great fans. Like, if you're a Tennessee player or a Tennessee person, like you want that, and you can sense that when you step into that stadium, that all those folks are just die hard and they're gonna bleed that ugly color of orange. So that was a fun experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Any notable or crazy individuals you had to line up against that you were like, oh man, I'm here in this game right now and I'm about to get into one?
So again, I play mostly special teams.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were some returners back there that were,
Yeah.
And but I think AJ Green was probably one of the most electrifying players that I had seen on a football field. Played at Georgia, and I mean, we had guys who I would say probably running high 4.2s, low 4.3s, and he's just running away from them. And whatever those 40 times are, like, that's one thing, but like on the field, speed is a whole nother thing. And I was pretty fast too. And just to see just how amazing players like that were. Trent Richardson, talk about a bowling ball, like Alabama. And I think their whole team just was filled with lead. Like, they were heavier, bigger, strong. They were everything. Yeah. But he was one that, you know, you heard those collisions, you felt those collisions in your spine. So yeah, those were a couple. And I mean, and again, some of those guys, they ended up playing for some time, and so AJ's still playing. So yeah, those are a couple that stand out.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to that transition from high school to university, college, what changes do you have to make from like a nutrition and training standpoint? Did you make any? Were there drastic ones? Any notable or standout pieces that you'd like to share with that next gen?
Yeah, so this is not to be disrespectful to the earlier coaching staff, but when I came from a powerhouse high school. Yeah, our workouts were tough. When I first got to Vandy, it was like cakewalk, working out wise, like the fitness, and I'm like, no wonder we're losing. No wonder we're 2-10. And I mean, it was a combination of a lot of things. Like we injuries and you know, change of personnel and everything else. But I felt that I had worked harder my senior year of high school than I did when I first got to Vandy. Wow. And then we got a different coaching staff, and I was like, oh, this is real. This is real. Like, I don't think we, you know, like there are tons of different philosophies when it comes to, you know, training and everything like that. Our coach, Dwight Galt, he did not let up on us, but it helped. Like, we got stronger, we got bigger, we lasted through games. And so I think that was a big step up from what I had in high school. But I think, you know, the commitment level throughout the entire year has to be there. And if you're in high school, you may be able to slack during the summer or during certain periods of the year and still be dominant. If you do that at the next level, then you're going to lose a step. You're going to not be on the field the next year. I think that's a huge part of it. And then from a nutrition level, I wish I had known more. Right. I wish I had taken that more seriously, because I would go through days and forget that I hadn't eaten or had anything to drink and try to chug something down right before practice. And you saw that. It showed up. It showed up with how I felt, with how long I was able to last. And I mean, we had I don't know if it's still there, but a Wendy's right down the street. Okay. Wendy's was my meal right before practice. So many days. Man. And I just think back, like, you know, I should have stopped at the chow hall and got a real meal earlier in the day to prepare and hydrated much more and stayed hydrated. I think as a human race, we're dehydrated. We're overly dehydrated, like, way too often. And then you put on, you know, 10 pounds of pads and crank up the heat on the turf, and you're really dehydrated. And doing that every day, I wish I had taken that part more seriously. So just eating more vegetables, eating more, just filling my body up with better foods, whole foods, as opposed to the quickest thing that I could get in my body. And I think that NIL would have helped. I would have had a little bit more money. Yeah,
for sure. It's incredible you were able to get to where you were, crushing Wendy's an hour before practice. Well, And you know what? At least I'm glad to hear you're not on the DK Metcalf diet of black coffee, Skittles, and then one meal at the end of the day. Like, I don't know. How's that guy getting away with it?
I have no idea.
He's just a genetic freak. Eh?
Oh yeah, no, he's not from here. I don't think. Like you seen Space Jam?
Yeah,
Like, he came
he's
down
a monster.
Like yeah, he came down
sure.
like that. Yeah.
Which monster is he? I'm trying to think.
He's the purple one or the green one. He's one of those two.
Yeah, massive. Just another level. I don't know. You see that guy run a 40, you're like, I'm not getting in front of that.
Yeah. And oh man, talk about going from high school to college. Again, like I was fast, so I could run sideline to sideline and beat people to the edge. It didn't matter if they were a D lineman, linebacker, corner, DB. Like it didn't matter. Everybody's running the same speed. It felt like it's like everybody's fast. You catch a ball and everybody's surrounding you. And I just from my friends who made it to the next level, it's even more so at the next level in the NFL. It's just everybody is fast.
Yeah.
And you might be quick twitch and all that, but it'll catch up to you real quick. And you gotta be on your game. You gotta not take false steps. You gotta all of those things play a huge role.
You mentioned Alabama. I just imagine a 300-pound human being running at me at like a 4.5 40. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'll play another sport. Yeah, you can have that. I'll get the next one.
That'll haunt your nightmares.
Yeah,
it really will.
Yeah,
and it's like that across the entire board in the SEC. Just unreal athletes. Melvin Ingram, that's another one.
Okay,
he was on the defensive side of the ball, but a defensive lineman that could run faster than our receivers. And yeah, it's just like it's terrifying.
Yeah, that's scary.
Terrifying.
That's scary. When it comes to you had a pretty successful 5 years here overall. You were able to accomplish some incredible things. I mean, what you built here with Rosecrete on its own is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But to still stay in Nashville is pretty cool. It's an incredible story. Any other desire to explore or expand outside, or is Nashville that's true and true, you're never leaving?
I personally would love to explore a different city. I think there is so much growth in being in an uncomfortable and unfamiliar environment. I think the thing with that is my wife went to medical school away, and a lot of life happened here in Nashville. Unfortunately, her dad passed away while she was studying and things like that, and so she felt like she missed a lot being away. And when she graduated and got residency here, Nashville was home. Yeah. And Nashville was home for her and home for me. And so I think we'll be here. But I do think at some point it'll be good for both of us to get outside of Nashville. I would love to get outside of the United States. I mean, I might come up to Canada and check that out.
Like, 100% you should.
In the summer, I can't do the winters. I can't do the winters. Like, I can't. I can't do the winters here. Like, it's too cold here when it gets cold. And so, but definitely at some point, I think Reggie Ford will be on the move somewhere.
Okay. Shane suggested Italy. He said that was his spot.
I like Switzerland.
Oh, okay.
I like Switzerland. I like France. I'm about to head to Thailand soon.
Little vacay?
Little vacay. And I think, like, I'm a yogi as well. I don't know if you knew that, but I teach and I've been practicing for 7 years. And so Thailand, I'm feeling like I'm going to find something spiritual there and could land there. I don't know.
Very cool.
I'm open to it all.
I love
all possibilities.
So did the yoga come after football alongside it?
Oh, yeah. It came after, and thank God it did. So when I was done playing football, I had plantar fasciitis. And if you don't know what that is, that's like a knife going into your heel with every step you take. I had it in both heels. And it's worse in the morning. It kind of loosens up throughout the day. So when I wake up, head to the bathroom, I'm waddling like a penguin. And I hated it. I did everything while I was playing. I did everything after I was playing to try to fix it and alleviate it. Nothing worked until I stuck to a committed yoga routine. Wow. And I did yoga for 2 weeks straight with an intro package at a studio, and it went away. And I woke up and I was like, oh, my God, it's magic. And so I stuck with it for that purpose alone. But then it started to provide so many other benefits, just, being able to clear my mind, being able to process things and not just react to stuff. And you know, it's changed my life. It is absolutely changed my life. So I recommend it, and you know, not only for the physical but for the mental benefits as well.
Yeah, I did 25 straight days year and a half ago or something of hot yoga too. It was like, it was a grind. And I was doing that in like a little Murph challenge. I stepped on some nails. It was a bad experience. So I was going for 30.
Literal nail.
I was going for 30 straight, and I came up a couple short. But you know, win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
But I like, as much as the physical benefits were there, and you could notice them, the mental was what was another level.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talked about dealing with overcoming experiences. Does that mental clarity that yoga provides, is that just an add-on? Was there anything else that you were doing throughout these experiences that you share in the book? Any other like methods to ensure that you stayed on task and, you know, present?
Yeah, I think one, again, meeting my girlfriend, now wife, was probably one of the earlier steps, because I ended up communicating about things that were much more deep than just the shallow, how you doing, what's up, just talking about daily stuff. She would sit with me and like this, when I stopped playing football was when I first realized that I grieved football. And that's right when we started dating. And so I would be at a party and I just started drinking, and I would be having a great time, and then I'd be in the corner crying. And it wasn't just football. It was the fact that my cousin was just killed, and my little sister was just, you know, run over, and this and this and that. And like all those things started to catch up with me. And instead of, you know, I have friends like, you know, asking or just trying not to talk about it at all. But she sat there with me, patient with me, knew how to ask questions, because I wasn't one to speak. I was very shy early on. And she knew ways to just get little things out, to like, you say one word, now you're saying 2 words, now you're saying 10 words, and now you're just spilling your whole guts out. So I think that was one of the first things that really helped. It got me comfortable with expressing myself. And then yoga came along, and then it was a long, not a long time, but I would say 7 or 8 years after I had agreed with my girlfriend to go to therapy that I actually walked into a therapist's office to have a professional sit down with me and talk with me and, you know, help me process a lot of things. And I wish I had done it sooner, because there was such a stigma. And part of writing the book is to break down that stigma, because as long as you got a brain in your head, we're all dealing with something. And mental health isn't just like people say, I have mental health. We all have mental health. Is it good or is it bad? And I think no matter where it is, you always have to maintain. You always have to improve and work on those things. And so if you're living the best life you've ever had and things are going well, I think a therapist is good for you. Yeah. If you're going through the worst things in the world, I think a therapist is good for you. So, you know, a combination of those things, and then just looking at all the things that had impacted me in life, and looking at the things that I had normalized, realizing that 10-year-old shouldn't have had that gun in his face, that 14-year-old shouldn't have had to have a friend be killed, and all of that. And so, yeah, a lot of different things helped, but yoga is such a huge part of that.
Yeah.
I actually, right before this, I was teaching yoga to elementary school kids and telling them the same stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing your story. Like, it's emotional, honestly. Like, I'm hearing this for the first time. I know Andrew recommended we chat. Now I know why. Yeah, no, phenomenal. I again can't thank you enough. I really appreciate your time. Reggie, the way we wrap up every episode for the Athletes Podcast is we ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice would be for the next generation of athletes. Between financial success, athletic success, academic success, I'm sure you could spew out 42 different reasons. But is there one specific point that you'd like to leave with that next generation of athletes?
I think I got to come back to the mental health piece. Sports, at least my generation, my age, and things like that, it was taboo to feel, taboo to have these emotions and express things like that. But I think had I started yoga earlier, had I started therapy earlier, had I done a lot of those things earlier, I would have been an even more dominant player. I would have been even more stronger in the things that I was already good at. And so don't neglect. My advice would be, do not neglect your mental health, because it's going to be with you throughout your entire life. You can take care of it or you can neglect it, and you will see the consequences or the rewards from that. So take care of it. If you've been through trauma, don't minimize it. Nothing should be minimized, and take care of it. Get the help you need. Seek resources, and yeah, take care of your mental health.
Reggie, I really appreciate your time. Everyone is going to appreciate what you've shared here today. Where can people find you on social media if they want to do some yoga, read your book, learn more about your story?
So website, reggiedford.com. All of my social media handles are Reggie D. Ford. So check me out. If you want to drop me a tip, hit me up on the website, and I'll try to respond to those messages. You can DM me, follow me on Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram than other places, so check me out there. And grab the book, Perseverance Through Severe Dysfunction. It's available wherever books are sold. Get it from Amazon. Get it from your local bookstores. I prefer your local bookstores. Support those. And yeah, maybe one day I'll see you and I'll sign it for you.
Really appreciate your time, Reggie Ford. Hope you have a great one.
I appreciate it, man. Probably the T-shirts. I had a friend who was really good at drawing, and this was around the time like Platinum Fubu was popular.
Okay.
And I don't know, Looney Tune characters were his thing. He liked to draw them, and so he'd draw them on these big old pieces of paper, and gave me one time. And just for myself personally, I took this gel ink and traced what he had drawn on a T-shirt, and I wore it to school. I was like, dang, that's pretty cool. Where you get that? I'll make it for you. And so I'm selling T-shirts, and I'm going to Walmart and getting all of these T-shirts, cheap T-shirts, and selling them for probably 10 times what I paid for them. And it was fun. It was like, okay, I can create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
That transitioned into a whole bunch of different things. I sold fireworks. I sold knives. I sold what else have I sold? I sold a lot of different things. But then when I got to campus, I was one of the team barbers. Okay. I was a barber on campus for all the students, but one of the team barbers. And so I made a lot of money cutting hair. And going back to game day or the night before game, we would have our walkthroughs, we'd have our meals and everything like that. And then we'd all get per diem when we were traveling, or just for that day. And so everybody would come to my bathroom in my hotel and give me their per diem. I cut their hair, and you've seen some of my haircuts on TV. So just always hustling, man.
Yeah. Hey, you gotta look fresh before game day, right?
Absolutely. And I was probably the least fresh. Like, I didn't care about what I looked like, but I was making sure I was getting other people right.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. What a story. Hey, hustling since day one, and it won't stop.
I had a friend who was really good at drawing, and I don't know, Looney Tune characters were his thing. He liked to draw them. And so he'd draw them on these big old pieces of paper, and gave me one time. And just for myself personally, I took this gel ink and traced what he had drawn on a T-shirt, and I wore it to school. And I was like, dang, that's pretty cool. Where you get that? I'll make it for you. And so I'm selling T-shirts, and I'm going to Walmart and getting all of these T-shirts, cheap T-shirts, and selling them for probably 10 times what I paid for them. And it was fun. It was like, okay, I can create something out of nothing.
Yeah. I love it. I appreciate your time, man.
Yes, sir.